Welcome back to News in Focus. Now you're busy with your day's work. You then get a number that says telemarketing. You answer the phone and the telemarketer either says through an AI supposed information tool, says hello, and you're saying hello, and then they say we'd like to offer you a product, and it's not an actual human that's speaking. Or the other side of the coin, you get a telemarketer that wants to offer you a product. You would think that it's urgent, and that would say your full name. For example, how a bank, financial institute, if you are owing money to them, would say, thinking this is an urgent phone call, only to find out that it's a consumer company. And it wastes your time, and sometimes, and I'll speak for myself, I would say I'm not available to talk at that moment. Now, how do they get your number? Because you didn't do business with them, you haven't purchased anything from them, you don't even know who they are, and they're phoning you. Now there's a regulation tool that's going to curb this from happening. Let me welcome my guest, Advocate Colin Weapond, who is a member or a commissioner responsible for POPIA Act in the Information Regulator. Advocate, good day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good day, Mr. Patel, and good day to your viewers.
No, it's absolutely. You can call me Faraz. It'll be sufficing for us. Advocate, how do we get here? Because obviously, they don't just get your details in random. They get it from somewhere, somehow, and there is the POPIA Act that's there to protect. Break it down for the viewers, because I know it can cause a lot of frustration, especially when you are busy with something, and this is the least of all of your worries.
Yes, no, that's a very good question. So where do these telemarketers get your information from? That question was asked a couple of times. And what the Information Regulator is very sure about is that there are different sources from which information is collected from. One of them would be where you visit, for instance, these estates which require a lot of detail from you, personal information. And when you provide that information, we are not 100% sure if that information will be handled in compliance with the provisions of POPIA, and that makes it very difficult. But we are going to look at that as well. But what we are certain about is that the information that in most instances are obtained based on the complaints that we have received so far points to the fact that your information was not acquired lawfully. We also know about a lead where people then ask for your information or information of third parties, friends that you can refer, and then you get some present, or they would give you some discount on any product that you are buying from them. So that then is a way of unlawful collection, and that will be explained in the guidance note, the draft guidance note that we are busy with. But there are basically a few steps that you should be mindful of when people approach you. The first one is to ask them, where did you obtain my information from? Because information must be obtained lawfully, and that lawfulness that we are referring to is that it must, in the very least or the most preferable way, be collected from you in person. So that would maybe be where they meet with you and they ask you for your information, for instance, at a mall or complex. But the second way is that if you don't collect it directly from the person, then you should collect it at least based on the exceptions that are available. Maybe it was made publicly available, etc., etc. But what is also very important based on those couple of steps is that before they can market any product to you, they should also ask you, they should obtain your consent. For instance, asking if they can market, but they should also be specific about the type of product that they want to market to you. And if you withhold your consent, they should not proceed, and they should not contact you again, and they should ensure that they put your name on a database or a list of the people who should not be contacted in future.
Advocate, now I want to bring the consent part to it, of course, because from cell phone providers, they've got RICA, and obviously if you are taking out either a new contract or you're buying a new SIM card, you are, from a legal perspective, obligated to RICA for security purposes. Now, when the POPIA Act came, I mean, I read through it, and it specifically said consent. How is this happening? How are these telemarketing companies or even scammers, and I'm going to get to that in a bit, scammers who are acting as representative of banks still breaking the law, and it just seems that there's no real accountability measures for that?
Yes, so there is one of the enforcement notice that we've issued against FTREMs, and that is a very important enforcement notice. So the enforcement notice basically is a notice that puts you on terms that say you are non-compliant, but we're giving you time to comply. So that was one of the marketing companies where a couple of these examples that I've used was not complied with. And that is very important for us. But coming back to your question as well, because it's very important, is that we know that RICA is in the process of being amended, but we also know that we need to ensure that by issuing that guidance note, that draft guidance note that I'm just referring to now, because we're having this special engagement, stakeholder engagement on the 25th of September with DIMASA, which is the direct marketing body, and we also have BASA, which is the banking information body. And what we want to achieve is basically to ensure that all the stakeholders know and they are in agreement with what we are saying based on Section 69 and Section 11 of POPIA, which then talks to direct marketing by means of electronic communication, and then also to ensure that those parties that are going to engage in marketing practices comply with the law, but also understand how the law should be interpreted, and that is the guidance note that we are going to issue.
Another challenge obviously facing South Africans, and they're going to try and use POPIA Acts to their advantage, are scammers, because there's so many out there. I was nearly a victim of a scamming incident this week through my bank, which used, and they had all the information. They had my ID number correct. Dare I say they even had my bank account number correct. That's another challenge that's going to be presented, isn't it, Advocate, given that the scammers now are increasing, and in this new age or this fourth industrial revolution, they now have more access to your information than ever before.
Correct. And one of the things that we should be mindful of is that there were a couple of big security compromises that occurred in South Africa. And those could be the illegal sources where these scammers are using to their advantage. And what we also say is that we should be alive to the financial risk that our information that was already compromised through various sources posts, not only for us, but also, and very importantly, for people that are linked or connected to us. For instance, if you have provided information which is linked to your wife's information, for instance, that then poses a risk to the party if that information is compromised. But what the Information Regulator has also saying and advocating so far is that we should ensure that Section 19 of POPIA is complied with, in particular where there is a security compromise or where the information that was compromised resurfaces. So it means that the institution might or could not have been able to take adequate safeguards to save or protect those sets of information that was compromised. But we always ask if it's on the dark web that it be taken down, that it be followed through, and information that resides outside of South Africa, for instance, on platforms that are legal, like your Telegram, and those sets of information are a huge concern to the Information Regulator, correctly so, as you've put it for us.
Advocate, Ms. Benjamin Hlakula, who's of course the head of the Information Regulator, brought an important point with regards to these guidelines to regulate telemarketing. How far do you feel these guidelines are going to be in trying to make sure that there really is a legal framework in this regulation, number one, and number two, the fact that there are no chance takers, because in this world right now, with a high unemployment rate, there's always going to be this opportunity for there to be opportunists. So how far is this guidelines really going to say this puts an end to it and there's due process that is followed?
Yes, so for us, the guidance note that I'm referring to, which Advocate Pansy Tlakula, the chairperson, actually spoke to during our press conference, she actually, there was a very interesting question that was asked, and she responded to say, basically the question was that if a telemarketer calls you and you don't answer, what happens then? So the telemarketer is empowered to call you several times up until they get hold of you, and that's the harassment part, or bordering on harassment that bothers us. Also, the fact that there is a process that we try to undertake with the NCC, that's now the National Consumer Commission, which points to the fact that they should have what we would call a register which all the people that do not want to be contacted would place their names on. So it means that before you even do the call, you must refer to that list, because the person is already indicated that he or she does not want to be marketed to. That is the actual list that will ensure that the harassment stops and it does not continue. But very importantly, there's also the concerns that we've learned from Germany, because they have the Robinson's list. And that Robinson's list was compromised because the people used that actual list with the contact details of the people who wish not to be contacted, and they then contacted those people. So we've raised this question, and we've also learned from our counterparts in different countries, and we don't want to have a repeat of that. Hence our continuous engagements with the NCC to ensure that everything we do would work to the advantage of South Africans, but also striking a balance, because what we're saying is that we don't want to 100% discourage and discontinue the practicing of marketing, because it contributes to the economy, but we want it to be done in a way that is compliant with the law.
Advocate, thank you so much for joining us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Faraz.
That's an absolute pleasure. Goodbye. That's Advocate Colin Weerpond, who is a commissioner for POPIA at the Information Regulator. Now, what I would do is, when I would see a telemarketer, I'd sometimes swap my phone to answer and complete silence. That's what I would do. And believe you me, after 5 seconds, they put the phone down. Now, they would be talking to themselves, and they would realize after 10 seconds, there's no real interest in that. That's what I do. And then that harassment, as the advocate was saying, really stops at there. So, yeah, interesting to see how this is going to happen. But these telemarketers are going to continue to call at least 5 times a day. They try their luck. I don't know, you as a viewer, how many times you have been called by these telemarketers. Well, that's all we have for you here on News in Focus. From myself, Faraz Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.